Shabbat shalom, my friends. One of the most comforting songs that my camp friends and I used to sing on the last day of camp was this: Hayamim cholfim shana overet, aval hamangina, aval hamakela, aval hachevraya, tamid nisheret. Days pass and years go by, but the melody that conveys what we have shared, and those of us singing that melody, together with all of our binding friendships, they will endure forever. Hayamim cholfim. I'm not singing. Of course, it's a sappy song for teenagers as they prepare to return to their parents' homes after a summer of freedom. But it was amazingly age appropriate for us because it addressed what we very much needed at that moment in time. A sense of continuity during a time of endless and confusing change. A sense of community when we just didn't know how or if we belonged to a community, and a hope that our friendships would last forever. If we had known any psychotherapists at that time, they might have told us with great wisdom and with dumbed down vocabulary how there are liminal moments in life, threshold moments, transitional moments. We tend to get anxious at such times, feeling unrest and anxiety and a sense of being under real threat. Continuity is uncertain. Hierarchies don't hold up. We feel both frustration and hope, very same time. Our camp song embraced all of that and offered the promise that there is a way in which we can successfully cross over that threshold of liminality. There are tools available to us, named in the song, 3 tools to be exact. Tool number 1, shared memories can carry us forward. 2, a way of celebrating and ritualizing the experiences that united us. And 3, the certainty that we are surrounded by people who actually care about us. I pray that these same 3 tools today, all of the shared memories of how America came into being, the good memories and the bad memories with no ghosting and no canceling, and all of our public ceremonies that mark year after year what we have built here on this continent, and the certainty that we will now choose to be civil to one another. With these 3 tools firmly in our grasp, we can successfully transition now into a world that more fully expresses our dreams and the imperatives of the prophets. Ken yehi ratzon. May such be our will. May such be God's will. Our Sedra is Bo. Exodus chapter 13, verse 1 and following. We love to lift up the phrase, seeing is believing. How many times have you actually said that in the past week? Sounds good, right? We can all agree to that. Actually witnessing is better than any accumulation of assumptions and inferences. That's why an eyewitness to a crime or to a business contract is so critically important during a legal proceeding. Now, mathematical wisdom. It was Euclid some 1900 years ago who sought to attach mathematical certainty to logical reasoning. Theorems, inferences, deductive and inductive reasoning, conjectures and hypotheses. Euclid's success was monumental. But wouldn't it have been much better if real people with real vision could actually have seen whatever it was that Euclid was trying to prove with his mathematics? Because once we saw it, we'd believe it, right? No theorems required. Sorry, Euclid. But most of us who have been riding this earthly carousel for quite some time really understand that absolute truth, absolute certainty are nowhere to be found. Pharaoh saw and saw and saw again the power of Moses' God. But he didn't allow what he saw to challenge what he already knew. Oh, how the rabbis had a field day in inventively projecting why Pharaoh was not convinced after the first plague or the fifth plague or the seventh or the ninth plagues. Pharaoh wanted the plagues to continue. God wanted the plagues to continue so that the entire world might come to understand divine power. God wanted the plagues to continue so as to convince the Israelites of divine capabilities. God gave Pharaoh every opportunity to change his mind, but after a while, Pharaoh was trapped by his very own bad habits. So you see, seeing is believing only works when you are predisposed to a certain understanding of what it is that you're seeing. Avivah Zornberg amazingly calls all of these miracles and plagues, all of Moses' demonstrations, nothing more than tawdry signs and wonders. Wow! Zornberg, all of these plagues and things, tawdry signs and wonders. She also questioned whether the biggest challenge that Moses really had was in convincing himself of God's power and God's ongoing concern. Listen up. Later on at Mount Sinai, the Torah text makes clear that what Moses saw atop the mountain was not the same thing that the people who were gathered at the foot of the mountain saw. If seeing is believing, who's seeing is to be privileged. Zornberg puts all of Moses' tawdry signs and wonders into a single silo. Astonishing. Zornberg. Moses was staging events so as to convince people of that which he already knew to be true. So what he was giving them to see was not exactly objective, unadorned reality. So it ended up, the eyes of the people saw the golden calf. The eyes of the people saw the smashing of the first set of the Ten Commandments. God's omnipotence is given the broadest possible public display, both to Pharaoh and to the Israelites. Pharaoh didn't believe, and the Israelites in the desert rebelled against God time after time after time. Seeing is believing. Prejudices and predispositions impact what we think we are seeing. Physical exhaustion, illness, dehydration. I am told the ingesting of certain drugs distort what we see and hear and smell and taste. I know COVID can corrupt our senses of taste and smell. So can strokes. Prolonged imprisonment under harsh conditions can make us look at our tormentors and see only friends. The brain can be trained to ignore its own critical faculties. Rashi contends that Joseph cleverly manipulated reality so as to conceal his family relationships from the Egyptians. Moses and the Egyptian magicians both turned rods into serpents. And those of us who read that passage, we read it as if something like that could actually occur. A hand grows leprous, and then suddenly it heals. The Talmud chastises Moses for not having made believers out of the Israelites, since they already were believers, they and their parents and their grandparents, it says in the Talmud. Think of that. Talmud believes that the people most likely to believe all of those signs and wonders emanating from God already believed that God operates through signs and wonders. For goodness sake, isn't it obvious? Euclid couldn't have been Jewish in this kind of environment in which he searched for logical, absolute truth. Conclusion. Seeing is not believing. So how do we get to belief? I would suggest first would come Euclid and the training of a disciplined mind, a mind fully aware of the distortions that life imposes upon us. Secondly, would come what I cleverly describe as a moral wokeness, a sense of where the lines between good and evil, right and wrong are or ought to be clearly drawn in our world. A sense of moral clarity. We need to get there. And then, at the end of the day, there we stand. We are aware of what the teachers who came before us gleaned from our ancient family narratives, Bible, Torah. They then reached their truths. They devoted their lives to transmitting their truths to us. And now, this is the kicker, we must discover on our own truths that bring meaning and purpose and a sense of the sacred to our lives while maintaining a connection to our earliest founding moments. Is that a sufficient challenge for Shabbat? Good. Okay. Shabbat shalom. Hayamim cholfim. Days pass, they move on, right? But please don't forget, the challenge to my camp song comes from the fact that Groundhog Day is February 2nd. Shabbat shalom, my friend. Shabbat shalom.